Some might ask, why are you talking about this now when it happened last year? I said, well, a comment, someone's comment caused me to look into this deeper. Matter of fact, they suggested that I look into this, or it should be looked into. I'll read that comment later on in this video. But DEI was a simple, typical cover for hundreds of corporations to remove black women from their positions, their payrolls, right? Trump said he wanted people to get jobs based on their merit, right? I don't know too many other groups besides my folks who get jobs based on their merit. Some of them are overqualified and they still don't get the job. But DEI, most didn't think too much of it. Well, DEI is racist. This racist president. I believe DEI was used as a cover. And I'll talk more about it when I come back. Welcome newcomers and welcome back folks who are returning, and we would appreciate it very much if you check out the entire video. Let's go on. As I said, the reason why I did this video is because of a person's passionate comment they left on one of my videos. I cannot remember what video it was. Yeah. So I wanted to look in a little deeper on this phenomenon and find out what really happened other than DEI cuts. Because I know a lot of people in this country, they'll use whatever cover they can to try to justify what they do. You know, especially when they didn't want to hire you anyway. And they felt like by law they were required to do it. So in 25, the dismantling of DEI programs coincided with over 300,000 black women exiting the workforce. We investigate the explosive theory that corporations use these rollbacks as a convenient excuse for racially motivated firings to prioritize hiring immigrants. I also want you to ask yourself this. Why were more than 300,000 black women fired or lost their jobs between February and April of last year while they spent billions on illegal immigrants the following year? This country spent billions on illegal immigrants for 4 years straight. But these corporations didn't have the funds to keep 300,000 women employed. Do you guys recall? You recall prior to 2025 how much money they were spending on illegal immigrants just crossing the border. But then when it came to 300,000 black women, all of a sudden, you understand? Check this out. So I wanted to look into how many other groups of women were let go, fired, resigned during that time that 300,000 black women were removed or left the workforce. Check this out. I like to be thorough. I like to be fair. I searched how many white and other ethnic women were fired or left their jobs just as 300,000 black women lost their jobs. This is the answer. While specific simultaneous figures for white and other ethnic women losing jobs alongside 300,000 black women last year, February 25, aren't readily available. In these snippets, data shows white workers' unemployment stayed lower, but nearly 455,000 women across all backgrounds left the workforce by August 2025. With black women facing disproportionate impacts from federal job cuts, especially DEI roles and broader economic shifts, leading to wider gaps in unemployment rates compared to white workers. In other words, more black women were released than any other group. So now you have to ask the question. Some will say, well, it's because they weren't competent. Come on. It's an obvious answer. No. Black women have proven time and time again that not only are they competent, they also end up outperforming every other group by miles. They could come in and do your job and their job as well, because some of them are kind of like required to do it. Not only do their job, but help you do your job. And then do it better. And then once that you see they do it better, you get upset with that. You get insecure, you get intimidated, and then you start gunning for their position. So no, it had nothing to do with not being competent. It had nothing to do with being inferior. Okay. Black woman's experience. I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about black women history when it comes to the workforce, when it comes to the labor market. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Black women's labor market history reveals deep-seated race and gender discrimination. I know some people are aware of it, but I just wanted to put it, I just felt like this video wouldn't be complete if I didn't talk a little bit about the history of how black women were treated in this country when it comes to jobs. You know, when you guys say, oh, we don't want to work. Yeah, let's talk about how when we were looking for jobs, what you do and what you're doing now. The black woman's experience in America provides arguably the most overwhelming evidence of the persistence and ongoing drag from gender and race discrimination on the economic fate of workers and families. Black women's labor market positions is the result of employer practices and government policies that disadvantage black women relative to white women and men. Negative representations of black womanhood have reinforced these discriminatory practices and policies. Since the era of slavery, the dominant view of black women has been that they should be workers, a view that contributed to their devaluation as mothers with caregiving needs at home. Black women's unique labor market history and current occupational status reflects these beliefs and practices. Compared to other women in the U.S., black women have always had the highest levels of labor market participation, regardless of age, marital status, or presence of children in the home. In 1880, 35.4% of married black women and 73.3% of single black women were in the labor force, compared with only 7.3% of married white women and 23.8% of single white women. Black women's higher participation rates extended over their lifetimes, even after marriage, while white women typically left the labor force after marriage. Remember I told you about the, North Carolina? They actually created a law that required black women to go back to work, because black women were being taken care of by their husbands who were in the military. So they stayed at home, took care of their children and household, and they required black women to go to work because, you know, when they were being asked to come and work for these white households or these white women and their household, the black women was like, "No, we good. I'm good. I'm a stay-at-home mom." No. And they was like, "Oh, hell no. You're going to go to work." And they actually put laws on the books requiring that black women go to work. See how that was back then? They required, you see the large percentage of black women that were required to work, whether they were married, single, or what have you, or had kids, they had to go to work. But now when it comes to black women finding a job, one that meets their qualifications, skills, and experience, is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Yeah, okay. Now let's go on. 300,000 black women fired while billions flowed to illegal immigrants. You know what I was thinking? Okay, let's talk about a number. 300,000. It's a staggering figure. Can anyone explain how 300,000 black women seemingly vanished from the American workforce? Not because they wanted to, but because they were pushed out. While this economic earthquake was hitting one of our nation's most vital communities, where was the government? Where was the emergency response? Where's Congress, local leaders decrying how 300,000 black women are gone? That's not disconcerting or a part of the overall plan. In spring of 2025, a quiet crisis started to unfold. Between February and March, the U.S. economy lost 266,000 jobs held by black women. In just a few short months, their unemployment rate shot up to around 6%, one of the highest of any demographic group. Yet later, massive spending bills were passed or being passed by the Senate. In the spring of 2025, a quiet crisis started to unfold. Between February and March, the U.S. economy lost 226,000 jobs held by black women. In just a few short months, their unemployment rate shot up to around 6%, one of the highest of any demographic group. This isn't just a story about numbers, it's a story about choices. It's about who gets left behind and who gets the full expensive attention of our federal government. Now, let me read the comment that set this off. Someone left this comment, as I said on one of my videos at the beginning of this month. They said they need to investigate Seattle, Washington, Boston, Chicago, Illinois, California, NYC, and now all of Florida too. Shaking my head. They have been locking us out of the job market on purpose. I think they want FBAs to start committing crimes just to make a living. Shaking my head. That's what we've had to do. You know, a lot of people didn't choose to go into crimes, but they chose it over starving, being homeless. It's so bad that most FBAs, including women, are now getting their CDLs. I don't know why people are choosing CDLs, but I believe it's because they are being shut out of high-paying jobs. For example, women that work in the healthcare field are now going into trucking. There needs to be an online discussion had where people can explain what happened to them. I have been a victim of the 300K laid off, fired, and I wasn't given an explanation. Thankfully, I have a paper trail and video of the discrimination that I faced. I am an HVACR tech, and I work for a REIT, R-E-I-T. These REITs have to be investigated too because they are foreign owned. China, Japan, India, Mexico, Hungarian, Haiti, Jamaica, Nigeria, etc. And they want to own everything so that we are dependent on them. Just to give you an example, the REIT I work for makes over $100 million per month, and they seem to only hire foreigners. They don't know that I was FBA because of how my name is spelled. So I speak a little Spanish on top of my credentials. So I mention this because even if you are in an essential field, they are attacking us financially for a reason. And these immigrants know what's going on, but they don't care because they are a sleeper cell. Also, notice that foreigners are trying really hard to get into politics, especially to become federal judges. Please watch where these local judges are grilled before Congress, Senate, and it is revealed that they are really unqualified, yet they want to be promoted to a federal position. The judges over the Trump, R. Kelly, and Diddy trials are all a part of it, and those cases should be overturned. Also, the phenotype is not our only differences. These people take shortcuts and they lie about doing their work the right way. That's why there are so many recalls in construction, manufacturing, etc. For example, they want someone like me to teach these people for free. But when it comes to another FBA, they are not given the same grace learning curve. So it is true about them lying about their credentials. I have been on construction sites and on service calls with them, and they are messing things up. They almost always need someone to go behind their work and completely redo it again. Or redo it, shaking my head. I've been saying this for years. If you're ever in a situation, document everything. Document everything and go to the EEOC and file a complaint and then file a lawsuit. Hit these people in their pocket. We keep saying racism is expensive and they say, oh, well. Okay, let's go back. The purge of 300,000. Let's dig into the facts because they're pretty chilling. Data from early 2025 painted a rough picture. In just a few months, about 300,000 black women left the labor force. This wasn't just a market correction. For this specific group, it was an employment crisis. So what caused this sudden drop? The data points to a toxic mix of policy decisions. First, the rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Incentives across corporate America and the federal government. For years, these programs were designed to help level the playing field, but as they were dismantled, we saw who paid the price. Even before 2025, DEI job postings had already fallen by 43%. The excuse is always that when budgets get tight, these programs are the first to go. And we kept telling you guys that we didn't benefit from these programs, but hey, they always need a scapegoat, right? The most damning statistics between February and July of last year, while black women lost nearly 319,000 jobs, the economy wasn't losing jobs overall. In fact, during that same period, white women gained 142,000 jobs. And Hispanic women gained 175,000 jobs, 176,000 jobs. This wasn't an economic downturn that hit everyone equally. This was a targeted demolition. Behind these numbers are people. Imagine being a black woman with a master's degree, a decade of experience, and a stellar performance record. You were told your education would protect you. Then one morning, you were called into HR and told your role is eliminated. In a strategic realignment, you watch as other colleagues are shuffled into new roles, but you're handed a severance packet. You're told it's not personal, just business. Now multiply that by 300,000. It's a quiet crisis that speaks volumes. When the budget gets tight or the political climate gives an opening, black women are often first to go. So how did it happen? It wasn't a single memo from a shadowy room. It was a multi-pronged attack, all done under the cover of restructuring. First, the direct elimination of DEI jobs. When these departments were gutted, it was a direct hit on the people tasked with monitoring equity in the first place, many of whom were black professionals. It's the first step to dismantling equity. Fire the watchdogs. Second, far more devastating was the exploitation of where black women work. For decades, the public sector has been a crucial pathway to the middle class for black Americans, offering more stability and equitable pay. Black women made up about 12% of the entire federal workforce, nearly double their share of the overall labor force. They were heavily concentrated in agencies like the Department of Education, Health, and Human Services. So when the 2025 federal budget cuts came, justified as efficiency reforms, Where did the axe fall hardest? Right on those agencies. Tens of thousands of positions were slashed. It was a calculated move that could purge black women from stable jobs without ever having to mention race. Third, the shield was removed. Rolling back DEI wasn't just about cutting jobs. It was about gutting accountability. It emboldened biased managers and tore down the systems meant to question their biases. Layoff decisions are rarely neutral. In rooms where executives decide who stays and who goes, unconscious bias loves a vacuum. The anti-DEI sent a clear message from the top. You no longer have to pretend to care. The old tools of discrimination, last hired, first fired, subjective culture fit were back on the table, now sanitized by the national crusade against woke workplaces. I can't believe we allowed them to take that word and taint it with their perversions. A word that we took and made it our own definition, or created our own definition in the 60s. They took it and just tainted the whole word. And we allowed them to do it. Why did we allow these disturbing liberals to do it? Let's go back to the central question. Did corporations use the end of DEI as a convenient excuse for racially motivated firings? The evidence doesn't point to a single written conspiracy. It points to something more insidious. The war on DEI provided the motive, the means, and the opportunity for a widespread corporate and federal purge of black women. Dismantling DEI wasn't an isolated policy decision. It was the removal of a guardrail, however flimsy. It was a signal to every manager and every HR department that the work for the last few years could be undone without consequence. It normalized the idea that rolling back progress was progress. The outcome wasn't an accident. It was the predictable result of a system that often treats black women as the last hired, first fired. It was the result of targeting the very government sectors where they had built careers. It was the result of a political campaign that gave companies permission to abandon their promises of equity, aka Target. The loss of 300,000 jobs isn't just a statistic, it's a shockwave that has devastated families and communities. Since black women are often the primary breadwinners, this was an act of economic warfare that has threatened housing, education, and generational wealth. And my question is why? Why did they target black women? I think... Let me continue. This wasn't just about DEI. This was about power. It was about who is seen as essential and who is seen as expendable. In 2025, corporate America and the federal government made their choice clear. They told the most educated demographic in the country that their degrees didn't matter. They told women who had navigated biased workplaces for decades that their loyalty didn't matter. They declared that in the new post-DEI world, their presence was no longer required. The excuse was policy, but the result was a purge. And that's a result we can't afford to ignore. So, me personally, I would have scorched the ground that the corporation stood on, and I would have salted the earth. And if you think you're going to use me as a scapegoat, you're going to learn the hard way. And I'm not saying that the women that were fired aren't doing anything. Who knows what they're doing to seek justice. But I know what I would have done, and I know what I have done. I would never suggest or give anyone advice on anything that I haven't done myself. All I know is we're not going to be your victims. And then you turn around and say we have a victim mentality. Well, we have victim mentalities when we simply speak out on what you do, you're a predator and a perpetuator. How about that? Anytime you in my comments call and saying, oh, victim mentality, I'm going to call you a predator. I'm going to call you inferior, and I'm going to call you insecure, because that's all it is. Insecurity. It took a lot for me to do this video, because like I said, when I first heard about it, I was disgusted. I didn't want to talk about it. But the woman's comment is what caused me to talk about this subject. So I don't have anything else to say, people. I hope this information that I shared with you guys, or throughout all my videos on this channel, I hope it's been very helpful to you guys. I don't just do this just to do it. I do it because I enjoy it. And I do it thinking about the people who appreciate it. That's what keeps me doing it. Well, no, it's more than that. God keeps me doing it. And then the people who I know show me time and time again that they appreciate it. That's what keep me going as well. So thanks, folks, again. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.